Returning production. That's what we're talking about today. But what if I was to tell you, Clint, that
Okay.
not all returning production is created equally? What if I was to tell you that some producers produce more than others? That's what we're going to talk about today on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. He is Daniel. I am Clint. Together, we are Locked On Bulldogs. And no, we hate when we do the podcast separate. It's the worst.
Yep.
So we'll forever be doing it together because it's far better product and more enjoyable for us.
Better for everyone.
It's better
Everyone's
for
happier.
Today on the podcast, we are talking, it is the offseason, and one of the offseason topics is to discuss who are you getting back this coming year. Projections are wild. People love prognosticating about who's starting where.
We should mention game time, though, before we do that, right?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. More on them in a moment. We should mention them. We're going to talk about returning producers for Georgia and for some other teams, and then tell you, you can't just simply look at number of snaps, percentage of snaps, comeback, and then all of a sudden say, there it is. We have a number of people who are coming back who played snaps last year, but what if those people weren't as good as other people on the team? It doesn't matter what snap count you get. It's really really important to understand the nuance, if you will.
Well, if we're anything on this podcast, Clint, dare I say, we're nuanced. We are not
fair, reasonable.
We're fair and balanced. First of all, I think everyone will attest to that.
Look at the comments.
But we're also nuanced. We don't go for the low-hanging fruit. We don't make the easy jokes. We're thoughtful. We're nuanced. We like to bring a certain sophistication and class to the podcasting game.
We're men of culture. So let's begin. First and foremost, I'm going to go through the ranks of SEC schools and where they rank on returning production.
A lot of people do these lists. Bill Connolly, probably the most famous guy that puts out these lists every year, going through looking at teams returning production, and so putting out rankings for who has the most guys coming back. And a lot of times these lists, to be fair, can give you some good intel, can give you some good information.
Sometimes it doesn't tell the whole story. So for the bang for the buck, which is really, really good, it's like 100% bang to $0. Go follow our boy. This is the only one we care about. Dawgs Stats over on Twitter.
There it is.
Go follow him. He's fantastic. We love him.
$0 still to follow him. He's not charging. Josh, if you're listening to this, may want to think about charging.
But if you do, remember
your boys.
And also Uninformed Frog. I think TCU game a couple of years ago, we got together with some people on the list. They got some good lists over there too for TCU.
Love that guy. Yeah,
okay,
for sure. Tough loss over the weekend against Texas in basketball for TCU.
Every time.
You got to back it up. If you're going to horns down, you may want to win the game at home.
So we're going to talk through the list of rankings of SEC schools with returning production.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom of the list.
Okay, the dead last bottom.
I just want to be sure. How many teams are in the NCAA?
I don't know, 130 something.
134.
Yep.
Alabama ranks 114th.
I was told, and I was told this by very informed sources in the comment section of YouTube videos. I was told that the media has completely overblown this Alabama mass exodus. It's not real. This is just the media trying to hype up some hysteria. Alabama's going to field the exact same caliber of team next year that they have every single year in the Nick Saban era. But what you're saying is
What I'm saying is that is literally,
Mhm.
objectionably
Mhm.
false.
Yeah.
Can't be consumed any other way. Alabama ranks 114th in returning production. Next up on the list, another formidable foe, Florida, 99th. So mass exodus of Florida
Get us
players.
out of there is what people are trying to say.
Tied is Arkansas, which
Sam Pittman's still employed.
Sam Pittman won't be
What
for
kind
long.
of voodoo magic is he working down
He won't
there?
be for long. Okay. Next, South Carolina, 93rd.
Mhm.
Mississippi State, 81st. And here's where it gets interesting for dog fans. Georgia ranks 72nd
Mhm.
in the nation, returning production. And you
So
might say,
72nd in the nation puts us right about middle of the road nationally. Also, based on some quick calculations of how many teams you've just listed, right about middle of the road in the SEC as well in terms of players coming back.
correct. Above us, Tennessee, 61st. Kentucky tied 61st. Vanderbilt, 47th. This is why you can't, not all lists are created equal. That's great.
Hello.
Vanderbilt is 47th in the nation in returning production. Is that production any good? The answer is no. But hey, good on you. You're in
But
the
they
top.
return it.
Okay. Ole Miss, 26th, tied with LSU for 26th, tied with Auburn for 26th. Okay. Missouri, 8th in the nation in returning production. Now that's important.
Because they were good last year.
You have my
And
attention.
they
Missouri.
return a lot of. Now that's interesting.
You have my attention, Missouri.
Mhm.
A&M returns total 6th ranked in the nation production coming back.
That's also interesting. Because
new
I'm
head
not sure
coach.
if you're aware of this. They are now coached by someone who can coach football.
That
And so that all of a sudden the ceiling raises significantly for Texas A&M.
you give me an over/under win total for Texas A&M today, I might take the over because it's going to be low. I might take the over.
Elko's a big deal there.
He's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Yep.
Like, I know it's A&M, and I know we could joke about them every single year. Oh, but y'all, this is a big deal. Elko's good. They have returning production, and they have oil money to spend on NIL.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, John and I were talking about it, and it's an A+ hire. I really feel like Mike Elko at Texas A&M. I mean, anybody compared to Jimbo is a significant upgrade. Like, you could hire Billy Napier. If
you could
Jimbo
hire
Fisher
that
was your
Lassie
coach.
dog, Lassie lookalike,
Yeah,
and we'd
there you go.
be fine to go. Really take the 12th man and just throw a football into the stadium stands and say, whoever catches it, you can come coach.
Yeah,
Better
but
than
Mike
Jimbo.
Elko, that's good. That's a good hire.
That's good. That's good.
6.
Okay. Georgia middle of the pack, nationally within the SEC, returning production. And you might say to yourself, oh, that's not good. We lost some good players. We lost a lot of people.
We did.
Transfer portal was not beneficial to us this year. But what if I was to tell you, hold on, transfer portal was beneficial. And hold on, we're going to get to not all production is created equal and why.
Mm-hmm.
You should come back and listen to the segment. We're going to give you an understanding of just the top tier talent coming back on some of these schools. But first, we're going to talk about these. These are, in fact, Game Time.
Mm-hmm.
Game Time is fantastic. Daniel and I love them.
them.
We use them all the time. Every time we need to go to the game, because M-Dubs couldn't produce his way out of a wet paper bag and get us tickets to a game. We go to Game Time.
Yeah.
1,000% better. It's fast, it's easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, all users get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code Vegas100. You want to go to the Super Bowl? Here's $100 off Vegas 100 with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. We can attest it is the best price.
It is
100%.
Vandy, Georgia, coming to Nashville in a couple weeks.
What you gonna do?
Rumor is John Smith, aforementioned John Smith, gonna be in town.
Stop.
We're gonna hit up the Game Time app. We might just get on over to the what is that gym called? Who in the world knows? It's a terrible gym.
Terrible.
I'll go watch Georgia play.
It's terrible. We love last minute tickets. Able to see what view from the seat you're going to get. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to help save you money. With zone deals, you pick the section of Game Time picks the seats for big time savings, which is fantastic. And right now, go over, use promo code Vegas100, get $100 off a big game ticket. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app and use code Vegas, VEGAS 100 for $100 off big game ticket. Or if you're not going to go to game, use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, low price, guaranteed. All right, Daniel, we talked about the rankings of SEC schools and the production they are coming back with players. But
let me say this, though. Like you
Okay.
mentioned the Missouri coming in at, what were they on that list? 8th. I'll tell you another school that stood out to me that you mentioned there. Georgia fans' ears might have perked up a little bit.
You know how to say it?
Ole Miss at 22, because let me tell you a little something about Ole Miss.
Yeah.
They were good last year.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of production coming back.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, they went out and got a lot of production in the transfer portal this offseason. And so you're talking about a team that already was good, returns a lot of those great players. Now, Quinshon Judkins is a loss, significant loss for them, but returns a lot of that production, and they went out and got significantly better at some significant positions. I think Missouri and Ole Miss, this is not a surprise to us. Georgia actually doesn't have Missouri on the schedule this year, which is, I think, a pretty big win for the Bulldogs. But they do have Ole Miss, and that's a game that I'm sure already has the attention of Georgia fans, but definitely should moving forward. Stood out to me.
All right. So if you understand return in production, not just as an aggregate of all the players coming back, that's good for experience, that's good for depth. You can say all that, but you really need top tier talent in college football to make you get where you want to get going.
That's right. That's right.
So we're going to list the schools that have Pro Football Focus 70 or better rating player. Pro Football Focus is not a perfect system. It is a flawed system. But overall, for an entirety of a season, Daniel, not just snippets, I think they do a pretty good job doing a summation of skill over a long haul. Not short spurts, not one game.
It's like a survey. It's like putting out a survey. The more people are included on that survey, the more accurate the results that you're going to get. You survey 2 people, 5 people, it's going to be wildly varied about whether or not that survey is going to be reliable. But you take a whole season's worth of data, and all of a sudden, Pro Football Focus, are you going to be able to find outliers here and there? Yeah, you are. And we like to make fun of them when we do find them. But over a whole season, it's generally helpful information. So we're talking about they've rated players 70 or higher. That's your top tier player. Those are your pretty dang good to great players.
That's right.
That's in college football.
Easily not just starting caliber, but highly thought of starting caliber. All conference type players in the conversation. Okay. Top team 20 returning Pro Football Focus over. And by the way, Dog Stats, one more time. He's putting this together. He's got stuff. Go over to Twitter. You can find this. That's where I'm getting from. Florida State has 20 returning players graded 70 or more, Daniel.
Color me shocked.
I am. Danny Cannell, notably not part of the survey. So
Danny Cannell, notably an idiot.
Yeah, well, that's very true.
But yeah, color me shocked, because I think you look at Florida State, you think about Florida State, and you just think about the guys that are leaving. But they got some good players coming back, apparently.
13 on defense, Daniel. 13 of those 20 on defense.
Yikes.
That's big time. Okay. And by the way, just to clarify, your quarterback has to have 50 plus attempts. Running back has to have 25 or more carries or attempts. Wide receivers, 25 targets. Offensive line, 100 snaps.
You got to use them.
100 snaps. Yeah, it can't just be, again, those outliers, 5 or 6 snaps here or there. Yeah. Florida State, Michigan with 19, USC with 18, Oregon State 16. And here's where it gets interesting for Dog fans, because Georgia, 15 returning starters, 70 or more graded, the top team in the SEC.
Now, that's interesting, because I was noticing you didn't read any SEC schools before you got to Georgia.
Not yet.
So you're saying that while we have right in the middle of the pack in terms of returning production.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying we actually have more very good to great players coming back than any school on our schedule in 2024, because I didn't hear you list Texas either or any of those schools. So, I'm sorry. Are good players important in college football? Is that?
Yeah. This is where, and Dog fans, I know we don't like hearing this, and we don't like to admit that we have players on the team that aren't notably good compared to others. I mean, we were all shocked. I mean, Daniel and I were shocked when Burton went to Alabama and was a third option. Just shocked.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No, we knew that was going to happen.
No.
And we weren't sad to see him go. So we have to admit, sometimes on our roster, there are players that go to other teams that are just mediocre at best. It's why we're going to name a couple of names in the next segment. CJ Allen is one of those returning starters that grades out very well, returning production, but also very good production. And we're losing starting, quote unquote, starting linebacker. But he goes to Kentucky. We get CJ Allen starting now, returning, because this just in, he's very good. Now he has to live up to the billing, admittedly.
Sure.
But there's a reason that certain guys are leaving and certain guys are staying. So Georgia's top of the list, SEC. Next is Arkansas with 14. So they have very few returners in depth, but they have a number of returners that are top end, which is
fascinating
to me. Alabama also with 14. You would imagine that a roster that is cut in half essentially would have, of the upper crust of number 1, number 2, number 3 classes for many, many years, has a number of good players. They do. You go down a little bit. Auburn has 13 returning, same with LSU. So Auburn and LSU, a lot of ties so far. Old Miss, 13. Again, that's concerning for me. So they have top tier 13. We
returning talent.
They have a number of returning depth, and they've added stuff in the portal. Again, can you guys tell what game we're nervous about next year? Is this clear?
Am I talking about it too much?
Missouri has 12, Tennessee with 12, Texas with 11, Florida with 11, and I'm just gonna try to peruse and give you a couple more names. Kentucky 7. That's not great,
but Brock Vandelay Industries, he's the savior of the program.
Texas A&M. You want to take a guess on how many returning of those top producing guys coming back? How many are 70 or better, Daniel? You'll take a stab.
5?
2.
No, no. Oh no.
2.
I think what this sort of goes to show is,
and Vanderbilt with 1, by the way.
Again, not all production is the same.
Correct.
Because listen, somebody gonna get yards, right? Like when you hand the ball off and run the ball, somebody's got to get them yards. Somebody has to make a tackle.
Correct.
So like when you say returning production, you're just looking at the stat line. And the stat line doesn't always tell the tale. I mean, anybody notice Darnell Washington's stat line when he was at Georgia? Wasn't
the same as Brock Bowers.
Look at Brock Bowers' stat line compared to his talent.
Yep.
Not even close to representative of who he is and what he does. Somebody's going to get those tackles. Somebody's going to get those carries. Somebody's going to catch the football. But that doesn't mean that they are elite at what they do.
No.
As they do that, Georgia, yes, they lose a lot of tackles in a guy like Pops, right? Like they lose a lot of tackles.
Dumas Johnson, go do great stuff, buddy.
They lose a lot of production in the secondary on this defense. The running back room. Think of all the loss of production in that room alone. With all the guys that are moving out, really the bulk of all the carries this year leaving for Georgia. And Brock Bowers, obviously. And then you got snaps on the offensive line. But it's much more telling, I think I agree, that the guys that are coming back are elite level players.
Yeah.
And then the thing that this doesn't take into account is what I'm going to call the Alabama reload,
Here it is.
right? Like the Nick Saban, Alabama, may God rest his soul, by the way, the Nick Saban, Alabama reload, where you're not taking into account that the guy sitting on the bench waiting his turn is also very quite good. Like, pretty darn excellent, and didn't get an opportunity last year, but guess what? He's more than up to the task.
Yeah.
Alabama's been doing that for nigh on a decade. And guess who's doing it now?
Oh, hello.
Well, it's us. So
That's right.
not all returning production is created equal.
We're going to name names and not get people blacklisted when we come back. But first, these. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me or Daniel, the Super Bowl is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some Super Bowl bets. Don't invite people over to your house
Here
that
we
you
go.
are not comfortable looking like an idiot in front of. Don't do the Super Bowl where you just willy-nilly invitations. If your team's in the Super Bowl, be judicious.
If your team's in the Super Bowl, you need to think, listen, Falcons fans, we all know. We all know what those Super Bowl parties feel like. You ain't trying to, if your team's in the Super Bowl, you need to be careful. But even if your team's not in the Super Bowl,
still,
you need, there's a bit of a sanctity to the event.
I got about 4 people I've ever watched the game with, Daniel.
You need to maintain that level.
Keep the integrity of that. But FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who wins Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and much more. New customers join today and get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let's name names.
He named names. You already mentioned C.J. Allen.
C.J. Allen's, yep. How about Malachi Starks? He any good?
Is he any good?
He's
How about
he's good.
Stackhouse?
Oh.
Warren Brinson.
Okay.
They doing any things?
You have my attention. What about Michael Williams when he's on the edge, Daniel? He's not down.
He doing any things?
In the 5 tech, but he's out. He's out over a tight end. He's coming off the edge of the outside shoulder of that tackle. All of a sudden, things get very interesting for him on defense. We have a lot of guys, maybe sneakily, Daniel, who are 70 or better coming back on the defensive side.
Yeah,
and I say sneakily.
Let me say this,
okay,
because a lot has been made this offseason about C.J. Allen and Braylon Wilson, right?
Sure. Well, yeah.
But not enough people are talking about Smile Mondon, I don't think, coming back on this defense. Because as much as you love C.J. Allen,
I do.
He's not the centerpiece of this defense.
No.
Smile Mondon is.
Yeah.
Smile Mondon's the captain. He's sitting in the captain's chair. He's wearing the captain's hat. He is making all the calls. He is the general of this defense. And I think he's more than up to the task.
Oh.
And when I think about dudes returning on the Georgia defense, he's not the most talented. That's Malachi Starks. He's not the most exciting. That's probably C.J. Allen. But he is probably the most important returner on this Georgia defense.
That we're getting Monty Rice-like player, but he's far superior in talent than Monty Rice was. You take that every day. It's quite incredible. Of the 15 returning starters that Dawgs Stats has pointed out are coming back to Georgia that are graded 70 or more in Pro Football Focus, 8 of them are on the defensive side of the ball, Daniel.
Ooh. I feel feelings.
Look for an uptick.
Well, we need let me say this. We need an uptick.
Is Lane Kiffin still calling plays for Ole Miss?
We need an uptick.
Just don't play a game in which you consume a beverage every time Daniel and I talk about the Ole Miss game.
You're already done for this episode. Like you're already
on the offensive side of the ball. Carson Beck comes back with a slick new ride.
Carson Beck is living his life. Okay.
Hey, why don't I stay again?
Why don't I go to the NFL and scratch and claw and try to make a roster and
or like counterpoint?
Mhm.
What if I stayed in Athens?
Yep.
What if I played for a championship caliber team with the best coach in college football?
Yep.
What if I got NIL money that's valued already this year alone, already over $250,000 in just one vehicle given to me in the season?
What if I
started yet?
You're saying what if I made NFL money to stay in college?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, that sounds like a good deal.
Okay.
Carson Beck coming back should count for 3 or 4 people. I mean, you know what I'm saying,
Really
Clint?
should.
Because
I do.
that's the thing right there. Like going into this last season, we had concerns about the Georgia offense. They all centered around one person. His name was Stetson Fleming Bennett IV because he was leaving. And how would the offense fare under new quarterback Carson Beck? Could he handle it? Blah, blah, blah. Georgia doesn't have any of those issues anymore. Again, back to the point I made in the last segment. Georgia's going to be able to run the football, Clint.
Yeah.
Like, not only did we kill it in the transfer portal,
ETN, welcome, brother.
but we had guys in the stable, in the room already waiting for their opportunities. And all the loss of production did was create opportunities for those guys to step in and produce. The wide receiving core. Yes, Georgia loses a guy like Ladd McConkey.
Bummer.
Well, guess who was hurt for half the season last year? It was Ladd McConkey. What do you know? And so, yeah, Georgia's going to have to replace him.
Of course.
But Georgia's already replaced him. And the guys listen, there's only one football, Clint. And so when you throw it around, only one guy can catch it. So if Ladd's not there, guess who's going to catch it? It's going to be Dominic Lovett. I almost said Don Blaylock.
You did.
It's going to be Dominic Lovett. It's going to be Ra Thomas.
That's right.
It's going to be CJ Smith. There's so many of these guys. I'm not going to say Arian Smith because I did say catch it. And so I will have to stop short of Arian Smith. There's so many guys that Georgia's got. Like the loss of production on the offensive side of the ball concerns me in exactly one place.
Where's that?
And it is center, center position.
Again,
it ain't tight end.
No.
It's Cedric Van Brandt. That's my concern in terms of loss of production.
Don't really want to talk about it.
Amarius Mims, I think will be fine. Brock Bowers, I think will be fine.
Sure. Just say less.
But that Ole Miss game.
He is Daniel. I am Clint. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast. Over your team every single day. We'll see y'all next time.
See ya.